June's lips crashed against the stranger's mouth before her brain could catch up with her body. 1 second. She'd been frozen in panic, watching her ex-boyfriend Derek weave through the crowd toward her with that smug, entitled smirk she'd come to hate. The next, her hand had shot out, grabbed the nearest man by his collar, and pulled him down to her level. The kiss was desperate, messy, and completely insane. But God, she needed this to work. The stranger stiffened for a heartbeat. June's mind screamed at her. "What are you doing? What are you doing? This is crazy even for you." But then something shifted. Instead of pushing her away, the man's hand slid to the small of her back, firm and possessive. He angled his head, deepening the kiss with a confidence that sent heat rushing through her veins. He tasted like expensive whiskey and danger. June's eyes fluttered open just enough to see Derek stop dead in his tracks 3 feet away, his expression morphing from smug to shocked to something that looked almost like fear. The stranger pulled back slightly, his lips barely brushing hers as he whispered in accented English, "Relax. I've got you." His voice was deep, smooth as silk and just as dark. June's heart hammered against her ribs. She became acutely aware of several things at once. The man was tall, easily over 6 feet. His grip on her waist was gentle but unmovably strong. And everyone, absolutely everyone in their vicinity, had stopped talking and was staring at them with expressions ranging from shock to what looked like genuine terror. Derek cleared his throat. "June? What the hell?" The stranger turned his head slowly, almost lazily, to look at Derek. He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Derek actually took a step back. I didn't know you were." Derek stammered, his usual arrogance crumbling like wet paper. "She's not interested," the stranger said in perfect English, his tone conversational but carrying an edge that could cut glass. "Leave." Derek's face flushed red, but he nodded, backing away into the crowd like a scolded child. June watched him disappear, her mind reeling. In 6 months of dating, she'd never once seen Derek back down from anything. He cheated on her, gaslit her, made her feel small and foreign and unwanted in this city she'd worked so hard to make her home. And now he'd just retreated, because of one look from this stranger she was still pressed against. June stepped back quickly, nearly stumbling in her heels. "Oh my God. I am so sorry. I know that was completely insane. I just saw my ex and I panicked and you were right there and..." She was rambling. She always rambled when she was nervous, her Nigerian accent getting thicker with each word. The stranger watched her with an expression she couldn't quite read, something between amusement and curiosity. "Komaor," June added in broken Korean, one of the few phrases she'd mastered. "Thank you." The corner of his mouth lifted in what might have been a smile. Up close, he was absolutely devastating. Sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to see right through her, and ink crawling up his neck from beneath his black collar. Intricate designs that marked him as someone who didn't care about corporate Korea's strict no-tattoo policies. "You're welcome," he said. And the way he said it made her stomach flip. That's when June noticed the crowd. Everyone was still staring, but not at her, at him. The staff near the VIP section had their heads bowed. A server nearly dropped his tray trying to get out of the way. And there, approaching through the parting crowd like something out of a movie, was a man in an expensive suit flanked by 2 others built like linebackers. "Gangnam," the suited man said, bowing deeply. "Boss. Oh no. Oh no. The stranger, the boss apparently, kept his eyes on June for another long moment, then reached into his jacket. June's breath caught, but he only pulled out a black business card, pressing it into her palm. His fingers were warm, calloused. "You owe me a favor," he said softly, in English meant only for her. "I'll collect." Before June could respond, before she could ask who he was, or what she'd just gotten herself into, he turned and walked away. The crowd parted for him like the Red Sea, people bowing and stepping back. He disappeared into the VIP section, leaving June standing there with her heart racing and a business card burning in her hand. Her best friend Sophie materialized at her elbow, grabbing her arm. "Juna!" Sophie hissed in Korean, her eyes wide. "Do you know who that was?" June looked down at the card. Embossed in silver on matte black, Baek Hee-Sung. Baek Hee-Sung. No title, no company name. Just a phone number. "No," June whispered. "Who?" Sophie pulled her toward the bathroom, away from the staring eyes. Once inside, she turned to June with an expression caught between excitement and terror. That was Baek Hee-Sung. The Baek Hee-Sung. June's mind was still replaying the kiss, the way his hand had felt on her back, the way Derek had simply folded. "I don't understand. The Baek family practically owns half of Gangnam," Sophie said, pulling out her phone and typing rapidly. "But not the legal half. June, there are rumors, really scary rumors. Underground casinos, real estate laundering, connections to—" She lowered her voice. "Organized crime." The bathroom suddenly felt too small. June leaned against the sink, staring at her reflection. Her lipstick was smudged, her eyes too bright. She looked like someone who'd just kissed a stranger. She looked like someone who'd just kissed a mobster. "Omo, wetin I just do?" she muttered in Yoruba, her mother tongue slipping out the way it always did when she was stressed. Sophie squeezed her shoulder. "It's okay. Just throw away the card and forget this happened. He probably thinks it was funny. It'll be fine." But when June looked down at the card again, at those silver characters catching the light, something told her it wouldn't be fine at all. The next morning, June tried to focus on her design project for her visual communications class at Seoul National University. She'd been in Korea for 2 years now, working toward her master's degree in graphic design, and she'd learned to pour herself into her work when life got complicated. It had gotten her through the Derek breakup. It would get her through this. Except her mind kept drifting back to dark eyes and a deep voice saying, "I've got you." Her phone buzzed. Derek's name lit up the screen. "June, we need to talk. I know what you were trying to do last night. It won't work." She deleted the message. Then another came. And another. By noon, Derek had sent 15 texts. By evening, he'd called 6 times. The messages got progressively more aggressive, more familiar, slipping back into that pattern of manipulation that had nearly broken her. "You can't just ignore me. I know you were faking it with that guy. Who do you think you're fooling? We both know you're alone here. You need me." June's hands shook as she blocked his number. But blocking didn't stop him from showing up. 3 days later, he was waiting outside her apartment building. June saw him from the bus stop and considered running, but running was what the old June would have done. The June who'd let him make her feel small. She walked up to him with her head high, channeling every ounce of her mother's no-nonsense attitude. "Derek, go home. Baby, come on." He smiled that smile that used to make her melt and now just made her tired. "I miss you. What we had was real. That guy at the club? You were just trying to make me jealous. It worked, didn't it?" June kept walking toward her building entrance. He grabbed her arm. Not hard enough to hurt, but firm enough to stop her. "Don't walk away from me. Let go." June's voice was steel. "We need to talk about this. You can't just replace me with some Korean gangster." "I said let go." Something in her tone must have finally gotten through because Derek released her arm. But he didn't back away. "You think you're better than me now? You think being in Korea for a couple years makes you special? You're still just—" June never found out what she still just was because a black Mercedes pulled up to the curb with a silence that was somehow more threatening than screeching tires. The back door opened, and Baek Hee-Sung stepped out. He looked different in daylight, more dangerous somehow, in dark jeans and a simple black shirt that probably cost more than June's monthly rent. His eyes swept over the scene. June, Derek's hand still hovering near her arm, and his expression went cold. "You?" Derek breathed, all the color draining from his face. Hee-Sung didn't acknowledge him. He walked directly to June, his presence creating a bubble of space around them. "Are you all right?" he asked in English, his voice low. June's mind was spinning. "How did you? You didn't call." He said it like that explained everything. His eyes flicked to Derek. "Is he bothering you?" The driver's door opened, and another man got out. June recognized him from the club, the one who'd called Hee-Sung boss. He looked at Derek the way someone might look at a particularly annoying insect. "I was just leaving," Derek said quickly, already backing away. "Good," Hee-Sung said. "Don't come back." Derek practically ran to his car. June watched him peel away, then turned to face Hee-Sung. Her emotions a tangle of relief and confusion, and something that felt dangerously like attraction. "How did you know where I live?" "You dropped your student ID at the club." He pulled it from his pocket, holding it out to her. "I was returning it." June took the card, her fingers brushing his. She didn't believe him for a second. "You just happened to show up exactly when my ex was harassing me?" "Lucky timing." His expression didn't change, but she saw something flicker in his eyes. Amusement, maybe. "Mr. Baek Hee-Sung." "Mr. Baek," June repeated firmly. "I appreciate your help, both times now. But I can handle Derek." "Can you?" It wasn't a challenge, just a question. June wanted to say yes. She wanted to believe it. But Derek's texts had been getting more aggressive, more obsessive. And the look on his face when Hee-Sung had stepped out of that car, that had been real fear. "Why are you really here?" June asked. Hee-Sung studied her for a long moment. "Have dinner with me." "What?" "Tomorrow night. I need a favor, and you owe me one." There it was. June had known that card would come with a price. "What kind of favor?" "A business dinner. I need a date." June almost laughed. "You need a date? I'm sure you have plenty of." "I need someone who won't ask questions. Someone who can handle themselves in an uncomfortable situation. Someone who kissed a complete stranger in a nightclub without hesitation." The corner of his mouth lifted. "You're perfect." It should have sounded like an insult, but somehow it didn't. June crossed her arms. "And if I say no? Then you say no." Hee-Sung shrugged. "But Derek will keep coming back. Men like him don't stop unless they're afraid. And right now, he's afraid of me. So this is protection? In exchange for being your... what, arm candy? In exchange for one evening of your time." Hee-Sung's expression was unreadable. "After that, we're even. And I'll make sure Derek understands that bothering you is a very bad idea." June knew she should say no. Every logical part of her brain was screaming at her to walk away, go inside, forget the mysterious mobster with the dangerous eyes and the even more dangerous promises. But Derek had made her feel powerless for so long. And this man, this stranger who'd kissed her back without hesitation, who'd made Derek run with just a look, he was offering her power. "One dinner," June said. "Then we're done." "One dinner," Hee-Sung agreed. The next evening, a package arrived at June's apartment. Inside was a dress, deep emerald green silk that shimmered when she moved it, cut in a style that blended traditional Korean elements with modern elegance. There were shoes, jewelry, and a note in elegant handwriting. "The car will arrive at 7 h." June ran her fingers over the fabric. It was beautiful, clearly expensive, and exactly her size. She should have been creeped out by how much he apparently knew about her. Instead, she felt something warm unfurl in her chest. At 7 precisely, the black Mercedes pulled up. The driver, Min-June, she'd learned his name, was opened the door for her without a word. June slid into the back seat, smoothing the dress over her knees. They drove through Seoul as the city lights began to glow, heading toward the exclusive Gangnam district. The restaurant was the kind of place that didn't have prices on the menu because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. Private rooms, hushed voices, and an atmosphere so refined June felt like she was walking through a museum. Min-June led her to a room at the back where Hee-Sung waited, looking devastatingly handsome in a tailored black suit. He stood when she entered, his eyes traveling over her in a way that made her skin tingle. "You look beautiful." "The dress is beautiful," June corrected, trying to ignore how her heart had jumped at the compliment. "The dress is just fabric." Hee-Sung pulled out her chair. "You make it beautiful." June sat, hyper-aware of his proximity as he settled across from her. "So what's the play here? Who am I supposed to be?" "Yourself," Hee-Sung said simply. I'm trying to expand into legitimate business, international partnerships, legal real estate development. Having someone like you at my side makes me look legitimate. June raised an eyebrow. A Nigerian international student makes you look legitimate, worldly, modern, someone who has connections beyond the traditional circles. He poured her water, the gesture oddly domestic. And someone who isn't afraid to speak her mind. That's rare in my world. Before June could respond, the door opened and 3 men entered. They were all older, probably in their 50s, wearing expensive suits and expressions that ranged from curious to calculating. But it was the 4th man who made June's instincts scream danger. He was younger, maybe 40, with cold eyes and a smile that didn't reach them. Baek Hee-Sung, the cold-eyed man said in Korean, his tone pleasant but edged with something sharp. You didn't mention you were bringing company. June understood enough Korean to catch the pause, the slight inflection that made company sound like something less respectable. Hee-Sung's expression didn't change, but the temperature in the room dropped. Park Jae-won, this is June Adeyemi. June, this is Mr. Park and his associates. June stood, offering her hand with a confidence she'd learned from her mother. Pleased to meet you. Park took her hand limply, barely touching her fingers. His associates bowed but didn't meet her eyes. June felt the weight of their judgment, the same weight she'd felt countless times in Korea. Being black, being foreign, being other. But Hee-Sung's hand found the small of her back, warm and steadying. Shall we sit? The dinner was a masterclass in tension. The older associates discussed business, shipping routes, construction permits, things that sounded legal but probably weren't. June played her part perfectly, smiling politely, asking intelligent questions about Seoul's development when appropriate, and pretending not to notice the way Park kept watching her with those cold, assessing eyes. So Miss Adeyemi, Park said in heavily accented English, you are a student? What do you study? Graphic design, June replied. At Seoul National University. Ah, and after you graduate, you'll return to Nigeria. It was a loaded question. June felt Hee-Sung tense beside her. I haven't decided yet, she said smoothly. Seoul has grown on me. Has it? Park's smile sharpened. Even though Koreans can be so traditional in their views, there it was, the microaggression wrapped in politeness. June had dealt with enough of them to recognize the game. She could deflect, stay quiet, be the polite foreign student. Or she could be herself. I found that small minds exist everywhere, June said, matching his smile. But so do open ones. It's all about finding the right people. One of the older associates choked on his drink. Park's expression flickered, surprise, then something that might have been respect. Hee-Sung's hand pressed slightly firmer against her back. A silent message. Well done. The rest of dinner proceeded with Park testing boundaries. Hee-Sung deflecting with practiced ease. And June realizing this wasn't just a business dinner. This was a negotiation, a power play, and she was somehow a piece on the board. When they finally stood to leave, Park stopped them at the door. Hee-Sung SSI, we should discuss the Songpa development privately. Perhaps next week. Perhaps, Hee-Sung said neutrally. Park's eyes slid to June. Interesting choice, bringing her tonight. Very unexpected. He switched to Korean, probably assuming she wouldn't understand. I hope you know what you're doing. Complications can be dangerous in our line of work. June felt Hee-Sung go absolutely still beside her. When he spoke, his voice was soft, almost gentle. But every person in that hallway felt the threat underneath. June is under my protection. Anyone who disrespects her, disrespects me. I trust that's clear. Park's smile faded. He nodded curtly and left with his associates. June waited until they were in the car, pulling away from the restaurant, before she turned to Hee-Sung. What just happened? Park Jae-won controls the southern districts. I control the north. We've been negotiating a partnership for months. Hee-Sung loosened his tie, the first sign of tension she'd seen from him all night. He doesn't like change, or anyone he perceives as making me look weak. And I make you look weak? You make me look human. Hee-Sung met her eyes. That scares him. The words hung in the air between them, heavy with meaning. June wanted to ask more, wanted to understand this world she'd stumbled into. But Min-jun's voice cut through from the front seat. Gangnam, we have a problem. Hee-Sung was out of the car before it fully stopped in the underground garage. June followed, her heels clicking on concrete, and immediately saw why Min-jun had sounded alarmed. There were 4 men waiting by the elevator. They wore leather jackets and carried themselves like predators. And they were blocking the only exit. Get back in the car, Hee-Sung said quietly to June. What's happening? Now, June. But before she could move, one of the men called out in Korean. Baek Hee-Sung. Park Nim sends his regards. Everything happened at once. The men rushed forward. Min-jun moved to intercept them. Hee-Sung shoved June behind him, shielding her with his body. June heard the sickening sound of fists hitting flesh, saw Min-jun take down one attacker with brutal efficiency. Hee-Sung fought with a grace that was almost beautiful, every movement precise and devastating. He took out 2 men in seconds, but the 4th had a knife. The blade flashed in the fluorescent light, slashing toward Hee-Sung's throat. June screamed. Hee-Sung twisted, the knife catching his cheek instead, blood welling instantly. But his counterattack was immediate, a crushing blow to the attacker's wrist that sent the knife clattering across the concrete. Then a strike to the solar plexus that dropped the man gasping. It was over in less than 30 seconds. 4 men lay groaning on the ground. Min-jun was already on his phone, calling for backup. And Hee-Sung stood there breathing hard, blood dripping from the cut on his face, looking at June with an expression she couldn't quite read. Are you hurt? His voice was rough. June shook her head, unable to speak. She'd never seen violence like that, so close, so real. Her hands were shaking. Hee-Sung crossed to her in 2 strides, cupping her face with hands that had just been weapons. Look at me. You're safe. I've got you. Those words again. The same ones he'd whispered during their first kiss. June's eyes filled with tears she refused to let fall. This is what you meant, she whispered. About your world being dangerous. Yes. He didn't apologize, didn't make excuses. Just honest acknowledgement. Take me home. Something flickered across his face. Disappointment maybe, or resignation. Of course. But when they reached her apartment, June found she couldn't make herself get out of the car. She sat there, staring at her building, thinking about Derek's texts that had started again today. Thinking about how powerless she'd felt for so long. Thinking about how Hee-Sung had fought 4 men without hesitation to keep her safe. I need to ask you something, June said. And I need the truth. Always. What you do, the family business. Is it what people say? The rumors. Hee-Sung was quiet for a long moment. My father built an empire on fear and violence. When he was killed 5 years ago, I inherited that empire. I've been trying to legitimize it, to turn it into something legal. But that takes time, and there are people who don't want change. Like Park. Like Park, he agreed. I can't promise you safety if you're near me, June. I can't promise you normal. What I can promise is that I will protect you with everything I have. June thought about her mother in Lagos, about how she'd raised June and her siblings alone after their father died. Her mother had always said, we don't choose easy paths. We choose right ones. I need to think, June said finally, about all of this. Hee-Sung nodded and handed her a different card. Plain white with just a phone number. This is my personal line. Anytime, any reason you call, I'll answer. June took the card and went inside, her mind spinning. She made it to her apartment, locked the door, and finally let herself shake. She'd been kissed by a stranger, been protected by a mobster, been attacked in a parking garage. And somehow, despite all logic, she wanted to see him again. Her phone rang. Unknown number. June answered cautiously. Hello, June. Derek's voice, slurred. He was drunk. I saw you tonight. Saw you with him at that restaurant. You think you're so special now? You think some Korean gangster actually cares about you? June's blood ran cold. How did you? Were you following me? You're mine, June. You don't get to just move on. You don't get to replace me. The possessiveness in his voice, the entitlement. It was everything she'd escaped from. Everything she'd promised herself she'd never tolerate again. I'm not yours, June said clearly. I never was. Don't call me again. She hung up and immediately dialed the number Hee-Sung had given her. He answered before the second ring. June. He was following me tonight. Derek. He saw us at the restaurant. He just called me drunk, saying I'm his, that I can't move on. The words tumbled out, fear bleeding through her usual composure. Where are you? Home. I'm home. I locked the door. Stay there. I'm coming. Hee-Sung. You don't have to. But he'd already hung up. June paced her small apartment, jumping at every sound. It was only 15 minutes before she heard a knock, but it felt like hours. She checked the peephole. Hee-Sung stood there with Min-Jun behind him. The cut on his cheek had been cleaned and bandaged. June opened the door. Hee-Sung took one look at her face and stepped inside, not touching her but close enough that she could feel his warmth. Tell me everything. June did. She told him about Derek's escalating messages, the way he'd shown up at her apartment, his belief that he owned her somehow. She told him about the past 6 months of freedom and the past week of fear. And Hee-Sung listened without interrupting, his expression growing darker with every word. When she finished, he pulled out his phone and made a call in rapid Korean. June caught enough to understand he was giving orders about Derek. Finding him. Handling the situation. What are you doing? June asked when he hung up. Making sure he never bothers you again. You can't just... What does that mean? Are you going to hurt him? Hee-Sung met her eyes. Do you want me to? The question should have horrified her. Instead, June found herself actually considering it. Derek had made her feel small, foreign, unwanted. He cheated and lied and then refused to accept her decision to leave. He was stalking her now, trying to control her from a distance. No, June said finally. I don't want you to hurt him. I just want him gone. Then he'll be gone. Hee-Sung said it with such certainty that June believed him. There was a knock at the door. Min-Jun had found Derek faster than June thought possible. He was sober now, or sobering up fast. His face pale as he stood between two of Hee-Sung's men in the hallway. Hee-Sung stepped into the doorway, blocking Derek's view of June. When he spoke, his voice was conversational, almost friendly. Derek, we need to talk about boundaries. Look, man, I didn't mean. You've been texting her, calling her, following her, making her feel unsafe in her own city. Hee-Sung's tone never changed, but Derek flinched. That stops now. We used to date. I just wanted to talk. No. The single word cracked like a whip. You don't talk to her. You don't text her. You don't think about her. You're going to delete her number, delete her from your social media, and you're going to leave Korea. Tomorrow. Derek's face flushed red. You can't make me. Hee-Sung took one step forward. Derek stumbled backward into Min-Jun's arms. I can make you do anything I want. The question is whether you're smart enough to do it willingly. June watched Derek's bravado crumble, watched him become small and pathetic in the face of real power. Part of her felt satisfaction. Part of her just felt sad that it had come to this. Fine, Derek muttered. I'll go. Jesus. She's not worth all this anyway. Hee-Sung moved so fast June almost missed it. He had Derek by the throat, pressed against the hallway wall. What did you say? Nothing. I said nothing. You will leave Korea. You will never contact June again. And if I ever hear that you've bothered her, threatened her, or spoken her name with anything less than respect, Hee-Sung leaned in close. I will find you. Do you understand? Derek nodded frantically. Hee-Sung released him, and Min-Jun's men escorted him away. Derek didn't look back. June stood in her doorway, watching Hee-Sung's shoulders slowly relax. When he turned to face her, she saw something in his expression she hadn't seen before. Uncertainty. I'm sorry you had to see that. I'm not. June surprised herself with the words. He needed to be afraid. He needed to understand that no means no. Still, Violence shouldn't be the answer. June stepped closer. Says the man who just threatened my ex-boyfriend. I would have done worse if you'd asked. I know. And that was the thing, wasn't it? Hee-Sung would have done anything she asked. The power in that was terrifying and intoxicating in equal measure. They stood there in her doorway, the fluorescent hallway light harsh and unflattering, and June made a decision that was probably stupid and definitely dangerous. Stay, she said. Please. I don't want to be alone tonight. Hee-Sung's expression shifted, something warm breaking through the cold exterior. June. Not like that. Just stay. Talk to me. Help me understand this world I somehow stepped into. He nodded slowly. Okay. June made tea, real Nigerian tea with milk and sugar, the way her mother had taught her. They sat on her small couch, and Hee-Sung told her about his father's death, about inheriting an empire at 27, about his younger sister Hee-Young who he was desperately trying to keep out of the family business. She's 19, he said, staring into his tea. Same age I was when I realized what my father really did. I don't want that for her. What do you want for her? Normal. University, friends, dating, all of it. A life where she doesn't have to look over her shoulder. Is that what you want for yourself too? Hee-Sung looked at her, and June saw the loneliness in his eyes. I stopped wanting things for myself a long time ago. That's sad, June said softly. Everyone should want things. What do you want? June considered the question. I want to finish my degree. I want to open my own design studio someday, doing work that means something. I want my mother to stop worrying about me being so far from home. She hesitated. I want to stop feeling like I have to prove I belong here. You do belong here. Hee-Sung set down his tea and turned to face her fully. You're brilliant and brave and you don't back down from anything. Korea is lucky to have you. The sincerity in his voice made June's throat tight. You barely know me. I know you kissed a complete stranger to avoid confrontation. I know you stood up to Park Jae-won at dinner. I know you asked me to stay tonight even though you're terrified of what I represent. He smiled slightly. I know enough. June set down her own tea, her hands trembling slightly. This is crazy. All of this is crazy. Yes. I should tell you to leave. To never contact me again. To let me go back to my normal, safe, boring life. You should, Hee-Sung agreed. But I don't want to. The admission felt like jumping off a cliff. Hee-Sung reached out slowly, giving her time to pull away, and tucked a strand of hair behind her ear. His fingers lingered on her cheek. I can't promise you safe, June. I can't promise you normal. What I can promise is that I will protect you with everything I have. And I will never, ever make you feel like you don't belong. June leaned into his touch, her eyes closing. This is a terrible idea. Probably the worst. But he was smiling when he said it. They stayed like that, June's apartment quiet around them, the chaos of the outside world held at bay for just a little while. Hee-Sung told her about growing up in Gangnam, about learning to fight because weakness meant death in his world. June told him about Lagos, about leaving everything familiar to chase a dream in a country where she would always be other. Somewhere around midnight, June fell asleep with her head on his shoulder. Hee-Sung stayed perfectly still, afraid to wake her, and thought about how strange it was that a desperate kiss in a nightclub had led to this moment, to feeling something he'd thought had died with his father, hope. When June woke up the next morning, Hee-Sung was gone. But there was a note on her coffee table in that same elegant handwriting. You're safe now. Derek is on a flight back to America. But if you need anything at all, call me. H. June picked up the note, reading it 3 times, and felt something shift in her chest. She'd come to Korea alone, built a life alone, survived heartbreak alone. But maybe, just maybe, she didn't have to be alone anymore. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. This is Hee-Young. Appa gave me your number. He never talks about anyone. But he mentioned you 3 times this morning. Wanna get coffee? I need to meet the girl who made my scary brother smile. June laughed, the sound surprised and genuine. She texted back, coffee sounds perfect. The next week passed in a blur of normalcy that felt almost surreal after everything that had happened. June threw herself into her design project. Derek's social media accounts all went dark. He'd actually left the country. And Hee-Sung texted her every morning. Good morning. Every night. Sleep well. Simple messages that somehow meant everything. Hee-Sung turned out to be a hurricane of energy and enthusiasm. She met June at a cafe in Hongdae, immediately hugged her like they were old friends, and spent 2 hours talking about everything from K-pop to her business management classes to how overprotective her brother was. He doesn't let me meet any of his business associates, Hee-Sung said, stirring her iced latte. Says they're not appropriate. But he talks about you like you're different. I kissed him in a nightclub to avoid my ex-boyfriend, June said dryly. I'm not sure that qualifies as appropriate. Hee-Sung laughed so hard other customers turned to look. Oh my God. I like you so much. Please stick around. Appa needs someone who isn't afraid of him. I am afraid of him, June admitted. Just not in the way he probably wants. They became friends after that, meeting for coffee twice a week. Hee-Sung was studying business management with dreams of opening her own company. Something totally legal and boring, just to make Appa happy, she joked. She didn't ask about the family business and June didn't bring it up. Instead, they talked about normal things. School, dating, the challenge of finding good Nigerian food in Seoul. Through Hee-Sung, June learned more about Hee-Sung. How he'd dropped out of university when their father died to take over the business. How he'd been engaged once, years ago, to a woman chosen by his father, but she'd left when she realized what the family really did. How he worked 18-hour days trying to legitimize the business while fighting off challenges from people like Park. He's lonely, Hee-Sung said one afternoon, her usually cheerful expression turning sad. He has Min-June and the other guys, but he doesn't have anyone who sees him. Not the boss. Not the heir. Just him. June thought about that night in her apartment. Hee-Sung holding a teacup and talking about wanting normal for his sister. About the loneliness in his eyes. Does he ever relax? June asked. Not in 5 years. Hee-Sung brightened suddenly. But he smiled when he talked about you. Real smile, not the scary business smile. That's new. June tried not to read too much into that. But when Hee-Sung texted that evening, "Are you free tomorrow night?" She said yes without hesitation. He picked her up himself this time, driving a sleek sports car that probably cost more than her entire education. But instead of another fancy restaurant, he took her to a small pojangmaka, a street food tent in a quiet neighborhood. This is my favorite place in Seoul, Hee-Sung said as they settled onto plastic stools. No one knows who I am here. I'm just another customer. They ate tteokbokki and drank soju, and June told him about her coffee dates with Hee-Sung. Hee-Sung's expression softened when she mentioned his sister. She likes you. She doesn't like most people I associate with. Most people you associate with are criminals, June pointed out. Fair. He poured her more soju. But you're right. She has good instincts. So do I, June said. And my instincts say you're a good person in a bad situation. Hee-Sung's hand stilled on the bottle. I've done terrible things, June. Things that would make you run if you knew. Maybe. Or maybe I'd understand that we all do what we have to do to survive. She thought about her own journey. Leaving her family, coming to a foreign country, enduring Derek's manipulation. We're all just trying to make it through. They talked until the tent closed, then walked through the quiet streets of Seoul. Hee-Sung told her about his plans to convert the family's assets into legal businesses. Real estate development, restaurants, import-export companies. It would take years, and men like Park were fighting him every step. Why not just leave? June asked. Walk away from all of it? Because 200 families depend on the Baek organization for their livelihoods. Because if I leave, someone worse will take over. Because this is my responsibility. He stopped walking, turning to face her. And because running away has never been who I am. June understood that. She'd never run either, not really. Even when things got hard in Korea, even when Derek made her feel unwelcome, she'd stayed and fought for her place here. I admire that, she said. Even if I think you're taking on too much alone. I'm not alone anymore. Hee-Sung said it quietly, almost hesitantly. Am I? Jun's heart stuttered. They were standing under a streetlight in Gangnam, the city glittering around them, and she realized she was falling for a man who lived in a world of danger and violence. A man who'd threatened her ex-boyfriend and probably done worse to others. A man who also held teacups carefully and worried about his sister and looked at June like she was something precious. No, she said. You're not alone. Hee-Sung stepped closer, his hand coming up to cup her face the way he had that first night. I'm going to kiss you now. Not because you're using me to make someone jealous. Not because you owe me a favor. Because I want to. Is that okay? June's breath caught. She nodded. This kiss was nothing like the first one. It was slow, deliberate, achingly gentle. Hee-Sung kissed her like she was breakable, like she was important, like she was his. And June kissed him back, pouring all her confused feelings into it. The fear and the attraction and the strange sense that somehow, impossibly, this was right. When they finally broke apart, Hee-Sung rested his forehead against hers. This is dangerous. For both of us. I know. People will come after you to get to me. I know that too. And you're still here. June pulled back enough to meet his eyes. I'm still here. They stood there for a long moment, the weight of that decision settling over them. Then Hee-Sung's phone rang. He answered in Korean, his expression darkening with every word. What is it? June asked when he hung up. Park. He knows about us. And he's not happy. The next few days, June noticed the security. Men in dark suits watching her apartment building. A different car following her to university. When she confronted Hee-Sung about it, he didn't even try to deny it. Park is unpredictable. I'm not taking chances with your safety. So I just live with bodyguards now? Until I handle Park, yes. Hee-Sung's tone left no room for argument. June wanted to be angry, wanted to assert her independence. But she'd seen Hee-Sung fight in that parking garage. She'd seen the cold calculation in Park's eyes at that dinner. This wasn't paranoia. This was reality. Still, the constant surveillance was suffocating. June threw herself into her final project. A series of designs exploring cultural identity and belonging. She worked late at the university studio, her bodyguards waiting patiently outside. It was on one of those late nights that everything fell apart. June was walking to her car, her guards flanking her, when a van screeched to a stop. Men poured out, too many, too fast. June heard shouting, saw her guards fight back, but they were outnumbered. Someone grabbed her from behind. June screamed, thrashing, using every self-defense move Hee-Sung had taught her during their late-night conversations. She connected with something, heard a grunt of pain, but then there were more hands holding her down. A cloth pressed over her mouth and nose, chemical sweet. The world went fuzzy. June's last conscious thought was of Hee-Sung's promise. I'll protect you with everything I have. Then darkness. June woke to the sound of water dripping and the smell of mildew. Her head pounded. Her mouth tasted like chemicals, and her hands were zip-tied behind her back. She was in a warehouse, abandoned from the look of it, empty except for a few crates and the chair she was tied to, and Park Jae-won, sitting across from her with that cold smile. Miss Adeyemi, he said in English. Welcome. I hope the accommodation isn't too uncomfortable. June's heart hammered, but she kept her voice steady. Her mother had always said, never let them see fear. You won't get away with this. Hee-Sung will. Hee-Sung will do exactly what I want, Park interrupted. Because I have you. And despite his best efforts to seem cold and calculating, it's very clear that you matter to him. He pulled out his phone, filming June. She could see herself on the screen, disheveled, scared. A cut on her lip from the struggle. Park sent the video, then settled back in his chair. Now we wait. He'll come, probably with his loyal Minjun and a whole security team. He'll think he's saving you, and then I'll have him exactly where I want him. Emotional, distracted, vulnerable. June tested the zip ties. Too tight. Why are you doing this? Hee-Sung was trying to work with you. Work with me. Park laughed. He was trying to push me out. Legitimize the business, he says. Go legal. As if our world can ever be anything but what it is. As if we can just wash the blood off our hands and pretend to be respectable. So you'd rather keep things the way they are? Violence and fear forever. It's what we know. It's what works. Park leaned forward. And it's what Korea understands. Not. His eyes traveled over her dismissively. Whatever fantasy Hee-Sung thinks he can build with you, there it was again. That edge of racism, of othering. June had felt it her entire time in Korea, but usually more subtle. Park didn't bother with subtlety. You think I'm the problem, June said. You think I'm making him weak. I think you're a distraction. And distractions get people killed in our world. June heard vehicles outside, shouting in Korean. Park smiled. Right on time. The warehouse doors exploded open. Hee-Sung strode in with Min-Jun and at least a dozen men, all armed. But he stopped dead when he saw June, his expression cracking for just a moment. Raw fear and rage warring on his face. Let her go, Park, Hee-Sung said, his voice deadly calm. I don't think so. Park stood, pulling out a gun and pressing it casually against June's temple. You're going to transfer the Songpa territory to me. You're going to back out of the Busan deal. And you're going to stop this idiotic crusade to legitimize our business. If you hurt her, you'll what? Kill me? We both know that starts a war. My associates will retaliate, your sister becomes a target. Everything you've built crumbles. The question is she worth all that? June met Hee-Sung's eyes across the warehouse. She saw the calculation there, saw him weighing her life against everything else. And she saw the moment he made his decision. Yes, Hee-Sung said simply. She is. Park's smile faded. Then you're a fool. Time seemed to slow. June saw Park's finger tighten on the trigger. Saw Hee-Sung move impossibly fast. Saw Min-Jun raise his weapon. But June didn't wait to be saved. She threw herself sideways, chair and all, hitting the ground hard. The gun went off, deafeningly loud. The bullet pinging off concrete where her head had been. Park cursed, trying to aim again. But Hee-Sung was already there. The fight was brutal and brief. Hee-Sung moved with lethal precision. Every strike designed to disable. Within seconds, Park was on the ground, disarmed, Hee-Sung's knee on his chest. If you ever, Hee-Sung said, each word sharp as broken glass, threaten her again, I will end you. Territory be damned. War be damned. I will burn your entire operation to the ground and salt the earth behind me. Do you understand? Park nodded, blood streaming from his nose. Police sirens wailed in the distance. Min-Jun was already cutting June free, checking her for injuries. But all June could see was Hee-Sung, still standing over Park, his hands shaking with barely controlled rage. Hee-Sung, she said softly. He turned to her, and the rage melted into relief so profound it made her chest ache. He crossed to her in 2 strides, pulling her into his arms. I'm sorry, he whispered into her hair. I'm so sorry. I should have protected you better. I should have. I'm okay. June held on to him, feeling his heart race against her cheek. I'm okay. The police arrived, along with what June was starting to recognize as Hee-Sung's people in law enforcement. Park was arrested on kidnapping charges. His associates scattered, and June gave her statement in shaky Korean, Min-Jun translating when she got stuck. Hee-Sung never left her side. At the hospital, they cleaned the cut on her lip and checked for concussion. The doctor wanted to keep her overnight for observation, but June refused. She just wanted to go home. Except when Hee-Sung drove her back to her apartment, June found she couldn't make herself get out of the car. The thought of being alone, of those quiet hours before dawn when the fear would catch up with her. It was too much. Come home with me, Hee-Sung said, reading her mind. Please, I have a guest room, security, whatever you need. Just let me know you're safe. June nodded, too tired to argue. Hee-Sung's penthouse was exactly what she'd expected. All glass and steel and expensive minimalism. But he led her to a guest room that was surprisingly warm, with soft bedding and blackout curtains. There's clothes in the closet that should fit, Bathroom through there. I'll be right down the hall if you need anything. Stay, June heard herself say. Not in here, just close. Please. Hee-Sung's expression softened. I'll leave my door open. If you need me, just call. June showered, scrubbing the warehouse smell off her skin, and changed into the soft pajamas she found in the closet. Probably Hee-Sung's. When she finally lay down, exhaustion crashed over her like a wave. But sleep wouldn't come. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw Park's gun, felt the cold metal against her temple. She heard the gunshot, even though the bullet had missed. An hour passed, then two. Finally, June gave up and padded down the hall to Hee-Sung's room. He was sitting on his bed, still fully dressed, staring at nothing. When he saw her in the doorway, he stood immediately. June? What's wrong? I can't sleep. Every time I close my eyes. Her voice cracked. Hee-Sung crossed to her, gathering her into his arms. I know. I'm sorry. This is my fault. Stop apologizing. June pulled back enough to look at him. You saved me. You came for me. I almost didn't get there in time. But you did. She could feel him trembling. The strong, dangerous man shaking with the fear he'd been holding back. Hee-Sung, you did. I'm here. I'm safe. He buried his face in her hair, his breath ragged. When I saw that video, when I saw you tied to that chair, I've never been that afraid in my life. Not when my father died. Not ever. June understood then that this was bigger than attraction, bigger than convenience. Somewhere between that first desperate kiss and this moment, they'd become essential to each other. Stay with me tonight, she said. Just hold me. Help me forget. They lay down together in Hee-Sung's bed, fully clothed, wrapped around each other like they could keep the nightmares at bay through sheer proximity. And somehow, impossibly, June slept. She woke to sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows and Hee-Sung watching her with an expression she couldn't quite read. Morning, he said softly. Morning. June stretched, wincing at sore muscles. What time is it? Almost noon. You slept for 14 hours. You stayed the whole time? I wasn't going anywhere. Hee-Sung brushed hair from her face. June, we need to talk about what happens now. June's stomach clenched. You're going to tell me this can't work. That it's too dangerous. That I should go back to my normal life and forget about you. I should tell you that, Hee-Sung agreed. It would be the right thing to do. The noble thing. But I'm not that noble. And I'm tired of pretending I don't want you in my life. His thumb traced her cheekbone. Park was right about one thing, you are a distraction. You make me want things I thought I'd given up on. Normal things. Happy things. That doesn't sound like a problem. It is when people can use you to hurt me. When they can threaten you to control me. Hee-Sung's expression was tortured. I can't keep you safe and keep you close. Not in my world. June sat up, turning to face him fully. Then change your world. It's not that simple. Yes, it is. She took his hands. You're already trying to legitimize the business. Park is arrested. This is your chance to make the changes you want. It will take years. And there will be others like Park. Then I'll be careful. I'll accept security. I'll learn to defend myself better. June squeezed his hands. But I'm not walking away. Not unless you tell me you don't want this. I want this more than I've wanted anything. The words came out fierce, almost angry. But what you deserve is to make my own choices, June interrupted. I left Nigeria alone. I built a life in a country where I'm always going to be an outsider. I survived a toxic relationship and came out stronger. I think I can handle dating a reformed mobster. Reformed is generous. Reforming, then? June smiled. I'm not asking for perfect, Hee-Sung. I'm asking for real. He pulled her close, resting his forehead against hers. This is real. You're the most real thing in my life. They stayed like that for a long moment, breathing each other in. Then Hee-Sung's phone rang. It always did. But this time he ignored it. Min-June can handle it, he said, and kissed her. This kiss was different from the others. It was a promise, a commitment, a choice they were both making with eyes wide open. June kissed him back, pouring everything into it. Her fear and her hope and her stubborn refusal to let danger dictate her happiness. When they finally broke apart, Hee-Sung smiled. A real smile. The one Hee-Young had said she hadn't seen in 5 years. My sister wants to meet you properly. She's been texting me about it for days. I've been having coffee with her for weeks. June laughed. I know. She reports back every time. Hee-Sung's expression was tender. She says you're good for me. That you make me laugh. Do I? You make me feel human again. That's rarer. Over the next few months, June's life transformed in ways she never could have predicted. She finished her degree, her final project earning top marks. Hee-Sung was there for her graduation, sitting next to a beaming Hee-Young, both of them cheering when June's name was called. Park's arrest had created a power vacuum that Hee-Sung filled strategically, bringing in younger members who supported legitimization. The transition wasn't smooth. There were challenges, conflicts, moments when June worried that violence would erupt again. But Hee-Sung handled each crisis with calculated precision, always coming home to her at the end of the day. June moved into the penthouse officially after 3 months. It felt too soon and exactly right at the same time. Hee-Young helped her decorate, adding warmth to all that glass and steel. They cooked together, June teaching Hee-Sung to make jollof rice, him teaching her Korean dishes his mother used to make. They fought sometimes, usually about security or Hee-Sung working too hard. But they always came back together, learning each other's patterns, building something neither of them had thought possible. June started her own design studio with Hee-Sung's backing, something she'd initially refused until he pointed out that having her own business gave her independence and purpose, which made her safer in his world. Her first client was a nonprofit helping international students adjust to life in Korea. Her mother visited from Nigeria 6 months after the kidnapping. June had been terrified of that meeting, but her mother took one look at Hee-Sung and said in Yoruba, "He has good eyes, serious eyes. He'll protect you." Later, over dinner, her mother asked, "Are you happy?" And June realized she was. Despite everything, despite the danger and the complications and the constant vigilance, she was genuinely happy. "Yes, Mama, I am." A year after that first kiss, Hee-Sung took June back to the nightclub where they'd met. The same neon lights, the same crowd, the same VIP section where he disappeared that night. "Why are we here?" June asked. Hee-Sung led her onto the dance floor. The music was loud, bodies pressing close around them. But he pulled her into his arms and everything else faded away. "A year ago, you kissed a stranger in this club," he said. "You were desperate and afraid and you took a chance. Best terrible decision I ever made." "Mine too," Hee-Sung smiled. "I've spent this year trying to become someone worthy of that chance. Someone who can give you the life you deserve." Hee-Sung, "I'm not done." He reached into his pocket, pulling out a small box. "I know my world is complicated. I know there will always be risks. But I also know that every day with you is better than any day without you. So I'm taking a chance now." He opened the box, revealing a ring that somehow perfectly blended Korean and Nigerian design elements. Traditional Korean knotwork with Nigerian tribal patterns. "June Adeyemi, will you marry me?" June's eyes filled with tears. Around them, the crowd had noticed people pulling out phones to film. But all she saw was Hee-Sung, this dangerous, beautiful man who'd become her home. "Yes," she said. "Yes, absolutely yes." He slipped the ring on her finger and kissed her while the club erupted in cheers. It was dramatic and public and completely over the top. It was perfect. 2 years later, June stood in a private gallery space in Gangnam, surrounded by her artwork. The exhibition was titled Belonging and featured pieces exploring identity, cultural fusion, and finding home in unexpected places. The centerpiece was a large canvas showing a woman, clearly June, standing between two worlds, hands outstretched to both, belonging to neither and both at once. Hee-Sung stood beside her, his hand warm in hers, as Seoul's art elite mingled with his business associates, the legitimate ones now. The Baek organization had successfully transitioned into legal enterprises. There were still shadows, still connections to the old world. But Hee-Sung had kept his promise. He changed his world. Hee-Young rushed over, her business degree finally complete, excited about the new restaurant she was opening. Uni, the Seoul Times wants to interview you about the exhibition. June squeezed Hee-Sung's hand before following Hee-Young. They'd learned to steal moments between the chaos, to build a life in the spaces between danger and duty. That night, after the exhibition closed and the guests left, Hee-Sung and June stood on their balcony overlooking Seoul. The city glittered beneath them, full of possibility and promise. Any regrets? Hee-Sung asked, pulling her close. About kissing that stranger? June thought about everything that had led from that moment. The danger, the fear, the love, the life they'd built together. She thought about her mother's words. We don't choose easy paths. We choose right ones. Not even one, she said. They kissed as the city lights twinkled below. Two people from different worlds who'd found a way to build their own. Hadn't been easy. Probably never would be. But as June had learned that night in the nightclub, sometimes the best things in life come from taking crazy chances. Sometimes you just have to kiss the stranger. If you enjoyed June and Hee-Sung's story, please like this video and subscribe for more romantic stories. What did you think of their journey? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. I love hearing from you. Should I make a sequel? Let me know. Don't forget to hit that notification bell so you never miss a new story. Thank you so much for watching.